You can call me Mystic Mike because I predict these things.
Islam Makhachev takes on Arman Tsarukyan this Saturday as the main event for UFC 311 pay-per-view in Los Angeles, California. I'm going to break down how I think this fight plays out and who's going to win it. Let me know what you guys think in the comments. If you agree, disagree, whatever. Let me know your thoughts. This is a rematch, about 6 years in the making. These guys fought back in April of 2019. Arman Tsarukyan making his promotional debut in the UFC against none other than Islam Makhachev on short notice. Can't think of a worse opponent to make your debut in, but very good fight. I don't think a lot of people thought Arman was going to do as well as he did. Very unknown kind of fighter. Came in, was very game, had really good wrestling. I think he got Islam down at least once in that fight, but did tend to tire towards the end of the fight. Ended up losing a decision, but made a very good showing of himself. Was very indicative of kind of the career that this guy was going to have in the UFC. So since that fight, he went on kind of a run, beating a lot of guys like Olivier Aubin Mercier, who's a really good grappler in his own right, has a lot of success. I think it's over in PFL now, ever since he left the UFC. Davi Ramos, world champ jiu-jitsu guy. Matt Frivola, always game. Christos Giagos, Joel Alvarez beat him a little under 3 years ago. We know how good Joel Alvarez is. Arman Tsarukyan was able to take him down, put a lot of damage on him, kind of opening up TKOing him on the ground. So big feather in his cap early in his UFC career. Lost to Mateusz Gamrot, the gamer Gamrot. Dude's just a boring fighter. He's just primarily a grappler, doesn't really have anything else to bring to the table. I think that, I don't know, he won by unanimous decision, but I think you could argue that Arman won that fight. But after that, beats Damir Ismagulov, who again, great grappler. I think he's a Kazakh. He's from Kazakhstan. Yeah, 26-3. Very good, underrated win there. Ground and pound out Joaquim Silva, who's a beast. Knocks out Beneil Dariush. Gets a split decision over Charles Oliveira. Again, you can kind of argue that Charles won that fight, but I can see why they gave it to him. So, Arman Tsarukyan, no slouch. Very good fighter in his own right. Do I think he'll be champion? Yes, I do. But not while Islam is on the scene. I think Islam is just too good for everybody who's at 155 right now. Arman Tsarukyan, kind of on the shorter side, but very thick. He's 5'7". Very good, underrated striking, very good wrestling and grappling. Not so much a submission threat on the ground. Like looking back, he's got some submission wins back before 2017, but really just controls guys, lands a lot of damage on the ground, uses his wrestling and the wrestling threat to kind of open up his hands. But very good kicks, throws crazy axe kicks where his leg is literally touching his nose before he slams it down on his opponent. We saw him do that against Charles Oliveira. So very good guy. He's only 28, so not even into his prime yet. I think that he'll eventually be champion once Islam either vacates the belt and retires or moves up to 170, which I think he should probably do. There's not a lot of guys left, which I'll get to at the end here, that he could be fighting or should be fighting. He's kind of cleared out a lot of the division. But very good fighter. I just don't think he's got the skills at this time to beat Islam. Islam's just on an absolute run right now, in his prime. Huge guy for the division, very skilled. Kind of started out as primarily a grappler. Didn't think of him much of having the devastating striking that we see as of late. Was KO'd once in the past against Adriano Martins, his one loss. After that, it was just kind of decisions. Did knock out Gleison Tibau back in the day, but not up until really the Volkanovski fight. I mean, he got a ground and pound win over Bobby Green, but that was more just positional control and landing punches. But not until this last fight against Volkanovski, where he landed that head kick and then got him with the hammer fist, was hurting Poirier on the feet. I do think that his striking has come a long way. I do think that he carries decent power in his punches and obviously his kicks. I don't think that Arman is going to be able to outstrike him necessarily. I do look forward to seeing how these grappling exchanges go, because it was very competitive in the last fight. But again, you got to remember, Arman, he took this fight on short notice. So you wouldn't expect to see the best version of himself, but at the same time, you know, Islam is taking the fight on short notice as well. You know, hasn't been training for this particular skill set, hasn't been training for this particular opponent, so you got to kind of look at it both ways. So looking at the first fight, it was very competitive grappling. I'm just curious to see how it plays out this time now that they both have full training camps. They've, you know, had the rub of each other. They kind of know what each person brings to the table, and they've been game planning against each other. You know, they both had full camps, full notice to prepare for each other. I think Arman's come a long way. When they first fought, he was like 22 years old. So I think he's making drastic improvements in his game, becoming more of a finisher, in my opinion. So I'm curious to see how that goes, but I just don't see him being able to outpoint Islam anywhere. I just don't think Islam has any major holes in his game. I mean, I feel like he wears damage a lot. Like, he got cut up in that Dustin Poirier fight, got cut up in the Volkanovski fight. If there's one thing that you could say about him is that maybe his cardio tended to wane in the Volkanovski fight, but I think that was just maybe because he wasn't anticipating it to be the war that it was. But I just don't see Arman being able to expose any facet of Islam's game, and I think that Islam's just going to be able to shut him out and anywhere that this fight goes. I don't think that this will be a finish. I think that this will go to the scorecards. I do think that Tsarukyan could probably, you know, steal some rounds if he can keep it on the feet, maybe outpoint him, get a few reversals when Islam's going for takedowns, things like that. Maybe squeak out a few rounds. But other than that, I think Islam does take this fight by decision. Again, not knocking Arman Tsarukyan. I think it's crazy that Islam's a minus 410 favorite over him. I don't think it should be that big of a gap, honestly, especially considering how both of them have looked since, but how that first fight went on short notice. And the fact that they've both been, you know, I think Arman's been improving just as much as Islam. So don't really understand that, but I do think that, you know, Islam should be the favorite. I'm not sure what he does after this. You look at the UFC's rankings, you know, it's Arman Tsarukyan, Charles Oliveira, Justin Gaethje, Poirier, Max Holloway. So he will have beaten Arman twice. He's already beat Charles Oliveira. Hasn't fought Justin Gaethje yet, but Justin Gaethje's got crazy power on the feet. He's a D1 wrestler, but he doesn't have that defensive wrestling. He doesn't have that takedown defense. He just seems to get taken down and kind of just doesn't really have any jiu-jitsu or any way to get back up to his feet, it seems like, in his UFC career. So I don't see that fight really going his way. I could see them giving Charles Oliveira a rematch just because he just beat Michael Chandler, which I don't rate that high of a win, honestly. But you got Max Holloway coming off of a loss. You know, Dan Hooker, Islam already smoked Dan Hooker, and I think Dan Hooker loses to Justin Gaethje. Mateusz Gamrot, I don't think he stands a chance against Islam. Beneil Dariush, he keeps getting knocked out. Renato Moicano, ranked number 10. I think that he's maybe one of the few people left in this division outside of, honestly, Arman Tsarukyan and Charles Oliveira that would stand a chance against Islam, just because they are just such good grapplers and, you know, dangerous on the feet, and you got to be extremely well-rounded to beat somebody like Islam. Renato Moicano, he's got a big frame. He's 5'11", could prove difficult for Islam to get to the ground, and could help him to outpoint him on the feet. But even then, I feel like Renato's got a long way to go. He is fighting Dariush on this card. I just don't think a win over Dariush, 10-9, gets you a title shot against Islam. And I just don't know how many more fights we're going to see of Islam Makhachev in the UFC in general, but especially at 155. I think we could see him move up, because I think he lines up pretty well with a lot of these guys at welterweight, and I feel like he walks around about the size of some of these welterweights. So you give him a little bit of time to bulk up. I think that he can make a run at welterweight. I really do. So let me know what you guys think. Islam by decision. I just don't see Arman being better than him anywhere, and I think we'll see a competitive fight, but kind of a rinse and repeat of the first fight with Islam getting his hand raised. Thanks, guys.